welcome to my college decision reveal video. If you watched my last video, you would know that I applied to art school, so this is sort of an art school edition of this sort of video. If you follow me on Instagram, I have already announced where I'm going. So yeah, if you want earlier updates, you can follow me there if you're interested, which is linked down below. I'm still sort of new to YouTube, so sorry if I'm awkward, but I've been wanting to make some content about art and stuff, so I thought that would be fun. I wanted to start off by saying I'm not doing any of this to brag. I wanted to make this video because these are the type of videos that I watched when I was looking at schools, and I didn't really find many that were for art schools, so I just thought I'd make one of my own. So yeah, just a disclaimer, I'm really not trying to like make anyone feel bad or anything. I'm just sharing my experiences. So yeah, and I also might make a portfolio video if you guys are interested sometime soon. So yeah. I applied to 8 schools in alphabetical order. I applied to Columbus College of Art and Design, Kansas City Art Institute, Massachusetts College of Art and Design, Pratt Institute, Ringling College of Art and Design, School of the Art Institute of Chicago, School of Visual Arts, and University of North Texas. So basically I'm just going to go through and talk about the programs I applied to, what scholarships I got, and then why I liked the school and decided to apply to it, and then why I ruled out the school until I get down to the school that I ended up going to. So yeah, let's get started. So the first school that I ruled out was the University of North Texas. It is a great school, but I wanted to apply to art schools. This was my state backup option. It was the first school I got into, so I knew that I was going to college, and it was obviously a lot cheaper of an option. I didn't get any scholarships, but you have to apply for the school to like separate scholarships after you get in, and I sort of knew that this wasn't the school I wanted to end up going to, so I didn't want to take those opportunities from other people. I applied to their studio art major, and then I would have minored in creative writing. And yeah, again, it was a great school. I toured the campus for like all the state schools I've seen. I liked it the most out of all of them, and my art teacher recommended I applied to UNT as my state backup because they have a great art program for a state school. But I just wasn't interested in staying in Texas, and it was a really big school, and I don't know, it just wasn't what I was looking for, so I ruled it out. The next school that I ruled out was Massachusetts College of Art and Design. I applied to their illustration program, again with a minor in creative writing, and I received a $9,000 a year scholarship, which totaled to $36,000 over 4 years. I was super grateful for it, and that was great. I applied because, one, I love Boston and the East Coast. I have some close family that lives right outside of Boston, so that would have been really nice. And I heard some really good things about their curriculum in general and their illustration program. I ended up ruling out MassArt because even though I was super grateful, it did give me the lowest scholarship that any of the art schools gave me, and so that wasn't a really big incentive for me. Also, though I like Boston, there were other locations that I preferred more, and I had heard good things about their illustration program, but in general, compared to some of the other programs that I got into, it wasn't as strong of a program. And if I transferred into their painting department, which is something I might have considered doing, that program wasn't as strong as their illustration program, so that was kind of a little bit nerve-wracking. That if I wanted that switch, I wouldn't have a super stable place to switch to. But all of that aside, it was not super low on my list until I joined a webinar. I don't know if it was after or before I got into the school, but I remember that I was super excited about the school, just like I was about most of the schools. But after I joined the webinar, of course I wasn't able to visit the campus because of COVID, so this is kind of all I had to base it off of. But I just knew that I was less excited after the webinar than I was before it, and so that just sort of felt like maybe the school wasn't the right fit for me. The next school that I decided to turn down was the Columbus College of Art and Design. It's also a great school. I applied to their illustration program as well with a minor in creative writing. They gave me a $17,000 a year scholarship, which totals to $68,000 over 4 years. I really liked the school. I heard about it when I was like a freshman or sophomore from one of my other friends who was applying to art schools, and so I thought that was really neat. And I've just only heard positive things about it. But the reason I decided to turn down their offer was honestly mainly because of the location in Columbus, Ohio. It was really cold and it wasn't on the East Coast. And it was sort of like a mid-sized city, or mid-sized to big city, in sort of the middle of nowhere, and I just wasn't super excited about it. While it does have a good program, and it also has a good painting program if I wanted to transfer into that, it has like a similar, I guess, type of program to MassArt, which I also didn't love, so I felt like I would want to stray away from the school, even though it's great. It was sort of mainly location. The next school that I decided not to go to was sadly Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. I applied to their illustration program as well with a minor in creative writing, and I received a $10,000 a year scholarship, which totaled up to $40,000 over 4 years. I loved the school. If you know me, for 2 years, I think, this was my dream school. I attended their pre-college twice. Once was the in-person and once was online. And so I knew how their online curriculum felt, and I really enjoyed that, which made me feel good in case schools did end up being online this next year, which they won't, which is great. However, it was nice to know. And then I also loved their campus, and it was in Florida, which is a great environment. It wasn't in a super big city, which I would have preferred just because that's where I wanted to build my connections. However, I still loved the location of it. It has a great illustration program, but at the end of the day, I mostly had to rule it out because it was too expensive, but they were the most expensive out of all the schools I applied to, just base tuition, not including room and board, but overall they were still one of the most expensive, and they offered me one of the lower scholarships that I got, which is fine, and I really appreciate what I got, but I just was unable to afford it. On top of that, I was sort of doubting it because if I wanted to transfer into painting, they don't have a super strong fine arts department. While their media majors are super strong and like world renowned, which is the illustration, game art, and computer illustration, their fine arts program isn't that great. And even though I was really sure that I loved this illustration program, just in case, that was sort of a little bit nerve-wracking. However, they have an amazing illustration program. I met with some of the professors and faculty, same thing for the creative writing program, so I was really disappointed that I had to turn down this offer. The next school that I ended up ruling out was the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I love Chicago. It's a great city, and I heard amazing things about this school. My art teacher loves the school. I have a friend who's going there who went to my school, and I applied. They have an interdisciplinary program, so you don't really apply to a program. You just sort of take whatever classes, and you can sort of concentrate in different things. But I probably would have concentrated in illustration, painting, printmaking, and creative writing, just in general. They gave me a $17,500 a year scholarship for the first 3 years, and then a $20,400 scholarship for the last year, which totaled up to $72,900. And I was super grateful for that scholarship. And again, I really loved the school, and it has really great connections with the museum. They also have great dorms, which I know is a little thing, but that was kind of enticing. However, at the end of the day, it was really expensive, but that wasn't the main reason I ruled it out. I could have fought harder for it. But I had heard, even though I heard great things, I felt like it was a little bit too interdisciplinary for me, and I wanted something a little bit more on a track and narrowed. I didn't want to feel like I had to compete for classes that I felt like were necessary in my education, and I felt like I wanted a program that was set at least to an extent. And so I didn't really get this here, which sort of made me not want to go there as much. And also, I had heard great things, but I felt like most of the people that I'd heard about dropping out of art school and not having a great experience were at SAIC. And so I either heard really good things about it or really bad things about it, and that was sort of scary that there wasn't a lot of middle ground, because I didn't want to really take that bet on my education, in my opinion, of course. So yeah, I ended up turning down that offer. So that leaves me with 3 schools: the School of Visual Arts, Pratt Institute, and Kansas City Art Institute. Out of these 3 schools, the next school that I eliminated was the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, New York City. I loved this school. It was one of my top schools. I applied to their illustration program, and I would have concentrated in creative writing, and they gave me a $20,000 a year scholarship, which totaled up to $80,000 over 4 years. I was super, super grateful for that. I really wasn't expecting that much at all. But even though they have an amazing illustration department, they have an amazing painting department, and I felt like both of those would have fit me very well. And I was super excited about the curriculum. I was super excited about all of the webinars that I attended. I really enjoyed. I really loved the location, being in New York. That was a really big factor for me. Overall, it was a great option. I ruled it out again mainly because of cost. It was super expensive. And even though they gave me a really big scholarship, comparatively, because of the cost of living in New York, it didn't end up adding up to as much as I would have wished that it did. I also didn't love the living situation that they provide, just because it is in Manhattan. That's really difficult. There's not really a campus, which is something that is sort of important to me, even with smaller schools. And so I was really upset about having to rule it out, but I did. Alright, and that leaves me with 2 schools: Kansas City Art Institute and Pratt Institute. I will briefly talk about the pros and cons of each school before I reveal my decision. Kansas City Art Institute, I'll start with them. I applied to their illustration program with a double major in creative writing. It was their option instead of a minor, because you have to have a studio major, so it was sort of like a minor. It wasn't to the full intensity of a double major at another school, where you're just taking 2 full-on majors at the same time. And so, but that's sort of like what they called it. They have a lot of pros. I love this school. It wouldn't be in the running if I didn't. They offered me a $26,500 a year scholarship, which totaled up to $106,000 over 4 years, which I'm super grateful for. It was the 2nd biggest scholarship I received, and it was the largest scholarship percentage-wise out of their entire cost. And so that made this school extremely affordable for my family, or not extremely, but comparatively to the other private schools. And so that was a big pull factor. They also had a extremely nice admissions team, which was super personalized, and I got to visit their campus, which I really loved. It wasn't my favorite campus that I visited, but I loved having an art school with the campus. And they had amazing and well-funded studios. The downsides to this school were that it was really small, even compared to the other art schools that I looked at. It has around 500 students, which is even smaller than my high school. And I was sort of nervous that like the person and artist that I entered as a freshman, it would be such a small community that I couldn't really escape that and like transform as a person as much as I would have wanted to. Also the location, while Kansas City is a great city, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. It wasn't as much of like an epicenter of art as I wanted, but it was still a really nice city, and it was still a great location. Another downside was that I felt like their illustration program was, it was a great illustration program, and they have a great painting program, but I felt like their illustration curriculum was a little bit too narrow for what I wanted, and their painting program was a little bit less narrow, or it wasn't as narrow as I would have wanted, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't as, not streamlined, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. So I felt like both programs were great, but I wasn't sure if like either one of them really fit me. They just each almost fit me, which was kind of a struggle to figure out what I would want to major in. Yeah, and so I'll move on to Pratt Institute. Some of the pros are obviously their location in Brooklyn, New York City. That was a super big opportunity for me. I applied to their painting program, which I felt like was one of the most perfect fits for me as a program, and I would minor in creative writing as well at this school. They gave me a $27,000 a year scholarship, which totaled up to $108,000 over 4 years, which was the biggest scholarship I received, which is super helpful, especially with the expensive costs of living in New York City. So they have great programs and funding, and I got to visit their campus before COVID, and so I got a true tour, and I fell in love with the campus as soon as I got there. They also have cats, which is just a little thing, but they have a bunch of stray cats on campus, which is very cute. But the whole campus was very industrial. They have a great career placement program. All of the schools do, but I really liked the way that this school's career placement program worked, and it would provide me great opportunities, especially being in New York City. Some downsides, of course, are the cost of living in New York City and of the school. Another downside would be that I don't get, because of the cost and how far away it is, I wouldn't get to see my family as often or my friends, and I don't really know many people in New York City, and so even to my family in Boston, it would be around like a 3-hour train ride, and so that's a little bit nerve-wracking. But in the end, I decided to choose Pratt Institute. I am super excited to say that I've committed to Pratt Institute, even though they're both amazing schools. Honestly, they're all amazing schools, and I would have loved going to any of them. I, in the end, chose Pratt, and I couldn't get over how appealing their campus was and their campus life. I felt like it had just the right amount of students. It was still a small school, but it wasn't so small. In the end, it ended up feeling like, while Pratt was where my heart was, even though I loved KCAI, I felt like if I chose to go to KCAI, I would have felt like I was choosing it just because it was the easier option financially, which is a super smart thing to do. I'm not saying don't do that, but I sort of felt like I wanted to go to Pratt Institute more, and I wanted to be in New York, and I felt like their program was the perfect fit for me, and I just couldn't ignore that. And I knew that I could make Pratt work despite being difficult, and so I didn't want to take KCAI's offer just because it was the easier offer and feel like I had missed out on something that I was able to do, just because I didn't want to be in as challenging of a situation. And so I decided to take Pratt's offer, and I'm very excited. So thank you for watching the video. I guess I eat the cupcake now. Yeah. Oh. Should I keep this on? I don't know. Bye!